For generations, our people fought to throw off the yoke of imperialism. The century of humiliation was to be ended by the inheritors of Sun Yat-sen's legacy, tigers marching under a white sun. But it was not to be. In the great anti-imperialist struggle against Japan, the United States sent General Stilwell to observe. And he observed quite accurately. He was frustrated because the NRA would not commit against Japan for fear of being too weakened to fight the warlords. But in 1945, these fears were vindicated. The tired NRA was overthrown by Soviet-backed communist guerrillas. Chiang Kai-shek in 1949 forced to flee the mainland with millions of men to carry on the fight. For decades, the people's tutelage has continued, but under the guiding hand of the Kuomintang, Taiwan has maintained its sovereignty, economic prosperity, and its relevance as a sovereign state. In 1987, the government dismantled its one-party dictatorship after 4 decades of continual dictatorial rule over the island and multiple attempts by the CCP to take our final bastion. It was Sheng Qingguo and his pick Li Tinghui who began liberalizing the island and bringing forth a second economic miracle for the nation. Into the 1990s, alongside Hong Kong, South Korea, Japan, and others, we stand together as a shining beacon of golden liberty and economic prosperity. But our beacon of gold is made of 2 colors. Ever since the liberalization of the nation, political parties, both big and small, have become an integral part of national discourse. The Kuomintang persists as a major force, but alongside them, the DPP. These 2 parties form the heads of 2 coalitions. The Pan-Blue coalition of Kuomintang-aligned conservative parties, those who favor one day reunifying the homeland, diplomatically or otherwise. And the Pan-Green coalition, DPP-aligned parties of all affiliations who seek the independence of Taiwan from China, a unilateral declaration of a free republic with its own local identity separate from the Han nation. These 2 coalitions represent 2 branches of the Republic of China's political scene. The DPP have had sufficient success, but Taiwan increasingly comes under threat, and the Chinese identity is declining ever further on the island. Beautiful Formosa, our cradle, believes she has not the strength to reclaim the mainland from the Red Tiger, but a few within the Kuomintang still believe in ultimate victory. On the mainland, the remnants of the left KMT represent a small political faction under the umbrella of the CCP. While they are turncoats, they show that the ideals of Sun Yat-sen, of nationalism, democracy, and welfare, are alive and thriving. If ever we were afforded the chance to return to Nanjing, why would we ever turn it down? The DPP would see us separate from the Chinese whole, and if we should be victorious, remain a separate part from them. The KMT recognizes that either we will someday be victorious, or we will ultimately succumb to the mainland. As such, despite their history of militaristic resistance, the KMT is the main proponent of good relations between the CCP and the island, with Tsai Ing-wen's DPP administration stirring up the Chinese Communist Party and undoing decades of work. As the world enters 2020, the ROC lurches forth under Tsai Ing-wen. She is the nation's first female president and has proven to be a good statesman, running reforms on both the economy and the army to some limited efficiency. But through several mistakes, the DPP has taken political dents. The 2017 Act on Transitional Justice and the earlier property... 2017 Act on Transitional Justice and the earlier act governing the handling of ill-gotten properties by political parties and their affiliate organizations targeted the Kuomintang primarily, halting their funding and investigating several state agencies which were alleged to be KMT affiliated. An appeal by the KMT would successfully overturn the law as unconstitutional, and in 2018, a series of nationwide power outages due in part to the current administration's anti-nuclear stance led people to increasingly turn against the DPP. Major Han Kuo-yu of the Kuomintang would contest the 2020 election against the incumbent Tsai Ing-wen. Han has a 30-year political history, one in which he got his hands dirty bludgeoning several of his opponents in the 1990s, although political violence is not exactly unheard of in the Republic of China.
Choose your fighter.
The DPP and KMT are constantly at each other's throats, with the DPP painting the KMT as an authoritarian power wishing to redeclare martial law, and the KMT painting the DPP as dangerous reformers and corrupt populists.
Both parties have incredibly loyal followings. I mean, look at this. What is this, a concert? This is wild, even by American standards. After a harsh campaign season,
Han Kuo-yu acquires the presidential mandate in 2020, an election less than 1% apart. The DPP would contest the results, but into February, a new issue would arise that quash any conflicts. With coronavirus on the rise globally, Formosa was not spared its ill effects. The first job of Han Kuo-yu was to respond to this growing pandemic. Taiwan's export-focused economy would be hindered briefly by lockdown efforts. The activation of the Pandemic Command Center in February would lead to swift and centralized efforts to respond and acquire a cure. Domestic textiles began to produce masks en masse. By May, King Solomon of Saudi Arabia would sadly succumb to the virus, which by June saw Arabia collapse, and soon an oil crisis would strike the world. Taiwan felt the heavy effects of the virus and the oil shortage, tearing apart the economy, but oil deals with various powers like Norway, Japan, and Venezuela helped a swift recovery. It wasn't enough for the United States, though. Our greatest benefactor and shield would crumble into dust in September of 2021. Our efforts of recovery paid off, but required tight state control to be effectively applied. At times, it felt as if the nation was again under martial law, but for now, democracy is preserved. President Han knows that were it he in Beijing, he would not pass up this current opportunity to take back Taiwan. And as he considers this from Taipei, the CCP is simultaneously holding a party conference where the goal to take Taiwan is solidified. And at the same time as that, our delegates are set to meet on neutral ground in Singapore to discuss a return to normalized relations. Little do we know, within a year, PRC forces will move over the Taiwan Strait, trying to take us out for good. Japan and Australia are maintaining their defense agreements with us, and unbelievably, the U.S. 7th Fleet has gone rogue, remaining in Japan and pledging to keep us secure. President Han, using evidence from satellite images in Fujian province, puts forth the declaration of martial law in Taiwan as a military buildup begins in China. The Legislative Yuan rejects it, but then the PRC begins heavy missile strikes and seizes the Kinmen Islands with a small amphibious assault. Proposed again before the Legislative Yuan, martial law and a general mobilization is approved. The Republic of China has steeled its resolve. Whether you are Kuomintang or DPP, today you are a warrior and you will fight for the right to be free. Raise the white sun banner. Sun Yat Sen Smiles on the free. We have to repel their landings. Our only chance is to keep them in the sea and target their naval assets. Japan and Australia are funneling troops to our aid. With luck and iron will, we can hold our island. The combined strength of the U.S. 7th Fleet, our own defense fleet, Japan's, and Australia's is successfully keeping the communists away from the shore. The Chinese have a robust industry, but they did not predict the collapse of America. At the cost of half our vessels and much of the 7th Fleet, the Chinese fleet is reduced to nothing, and their plans are foiled. Compounding this, the city of Hong Kong, nearly 2 million are in the streets engaging in protests. They move beyond the city after overrunning the police. With a new Tiananmen unfolding on the mainland and the KMT holding strong in Taiwan, the Chinese export economy grinds to a screaming halt. Protests nationwide threaten the regime's stability. The army, the people, and the party all begin to realize that the market reforms of Deng Xiaoping can never persist in a time of war like this. Peace is made by Xi Jinping at the Manila Conference, but he is overthrown within weeks. Party conservatives seize control, pressing forward a Maoist revival under none other than Bo Xilai, one of the party's elder tigers. But who better to return the CCP to its Maoist roots? For now, Taiwan is secure. Victory belongs to the Kuomintang. But President Han knows deep down this isn't the end. More extreme measures must be implemented. As the 2024 elections come near, the communist threat is looming over the entire world. A resurgent Soviet Union, a Maoist revival. The democratic world is threatened on two fronts by the two socialist superpowers, ghosts of the last century. Generals of the army approach President Han. Emergency powers from the war have yet to be relinquished, and the reestablishment of a dictatorship is on the table. The people are proud of victory but restless. The Republic's fate hangs in limbo. Ultimately, the former major gives his permission to the military to take control of governing. Han maintains an executive role, but the military sees the state. An emergency government is created, and any delusions of warm relations with Beijing are gone. Enter the elder General Qin Sang, a longtime officer and politician. Even though he is 82 years old, in the very same vein as Bo Xilai on the mainland, these two elder men are returning their respective parties to their roots. The rule of Chiang Kai-shek is reborn under a new commander. The goal of national defense and self-reliance is placed at the forefront. Anti-government protests are cracked down on roughly. This neo-Kuomintang embraces the pre-1987 government, a necessary evil. The people's tutelage resumes, and the Pacific Defense Treaty Organization is wary but happy to have us on their side.
For we possess the one thing that the entire world needs. The Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company was founded in 1987 at the beginning of the era of miniaturized home computation, and in the 40 years since its founding, it has become perhaps the world's single most important company anywhere, ever. And how could this be? Simple, really. Around 25% of the Taiwanese GDP is dedicated to the production of these microchips for domestic and export use, and it contributes to 30% of the Taiwanese Stock Exchange Index. The company is remarkable in that every single year since 1994, it has grown an average of 17.4% in yearly revenue. Taiwan is so incredibly important to the PDTO and to much of the world because of this company alone. Most of the world's tech companies utilize our chips to create everything from weapon systems to simple high-performance processors. But the entire world would come to a screeching halt if our supply of chips were to be cut off. In this way, little Formosa possesses an ace in the hole. We may be a dictatorship for the moment, but this just means we're going to consolidate our technical advantage. The production of chips means it's never been easier to mass-produce drones and advanced technology. It's no mistake that mainland China is right behind us as the number 2 producer of chips globally. TSMC actually does have 3, or had 3 subsidiaries: TSMC Washington and TSMC Nanjing, as well as our Japanese joint venture, the JASM, as well as divisions in Singapore and the Netherlands. It was Li Kuo-ting in the later years of the dictatorship who saw, on behalf of the legislature, the potential in domestic chip manufacturing. He gave one Morris Chang a blank check to develop semiconductor production in Taiwan, and while it was very hard to find investors due to the high-risk nature of the industry at the time, the full backing of the Taiwanese government as part of its self-sufficiency programs made the company practically a state venture. The strategic development of this company and its continued support by the Kuomintang has enabled it to be a resource that has kept Taiwan defended by those who rely on their supply of semiconductors. Today, things are no different. If the TSMC was the last gift of the Shang dictatorship, then it remains proof of the efficacy of the Kuomintang in guiding the nation with a dictatorial hand. And with state subsidization of the TSMC and the Hsinchu Science Park, we will continue to innovate and create deadly weapons of warfare for us and our allies. In every battlefield across the world, our chips will be found, and in every set of smart equipment issued to our forces, there will be stamped on thin wafers, TSMC.
The state takes the reins of industry in their hands. All vital industries are directed towards the war effort. Rationing is applied. The whole island is prepared for a great struggle, fortified further, rearmed, and mobilized. The emergency government forms a new professional army, refounding the NRA from the bottom up, mechanizing, but going yet further.
To truly prepare for the return home, the inevitable conflict, it will take a special kind of soldier, men who will dare to die. The latest of technological equipment, integrated battlefields, heads-up displays, miniature computation, and battlefield AI assistance. Drone-carrying soldiers raining death from above, unseen, with a horde of bomb drones. The future is now, and making our men dare to die is not just a matter of training and experience. It is a matter of giving our men the very best chance of living out of any army to ever walk this earth. To use our domestic technologies to create for the average soldier the best possible conditions for survival.
Our army will become one of the greatest in Asia, brave, disciplined, and intimidating. Our army shall descend on the Maoists, a black tide of masked liberation. It will be a long, protracted conflict, but all will be worth it. We can put aside vengeance, dictatorship. We can put it all aside once we bring order and democracy to the mainland. The world, for all purposes, as chaotic as it has been, is looking well. Donald Trump has unified America by late 2024. His madman diplomacy makes him impossible to predict, but his good friendship with Japan means great news for us and our friends as well. Meanwhile, in Europe, NATO is preparing for a grand struggle with the Soviet Union. This new red world is harrowing, but NATO relieves some of the pressure. Their victory in the 2026 European War brings great celebration from the PDTO and condolences from the Association of Democratic States, whose main benefactor is now under the control of one Alexander Dugin, a mad man in a mad nation. With Europe and the United States resolved, at least for now, there remains one more front for the struggle for liberty. Our struggle. early 2029, North Korean forces cross the DMZ. PDTO forces seeking to aid South Korea enter, officially starting another major war between the PDTO and the EADI. The last Korean War was long and brutal, but this one will bring in the Republic of India and countless other nations. Our forces are prepared to hold our beloved island, to rush into Pakistan, and to hold fast against Nepal. The Chinese shipbuilding industry has faltered, with the PDTO meeting the mark. The sea is ours. Our allies combined must take down the tiger. Chairman Bo Xilai in Beijing disapproves of the PDTO intervention, predictably, but for us, it is no question. South Korea is one of our closest friends. We will never forget our friends or our enemies. The Kuomintang has a long memory. Today is the day of redemption and reclamation. Millions will perish, but no, this is the ultimate conclusion of a conflict 1 century in the making. Press the advantage. We did this once already. Initial failures in India look less than promising. The Chinese garrison in Tibet punched through into eastern Bengal, cutting off Indian forces between Bangladesh and Myanmar, and the Chinese likewise have secured a land bridge with Pakistan. Despite this, our elite mechanized push across, cutting Pakistan in half at the Afghan border and cracking down further on the Pakistani state until its destruction, catching many Chinese forces within it. Simultaneously, PDTO forces enter neutral Bangladesh to reopen a land bridge to India's cut-off forces. Meeting surprising success, our Nepalese units trained in the mountains of Taiwan push into the Himalayan nation under treacherous conditions to threaten Kathmandu, all while our mechanized reposition for a thrust into the Gobi Desert. The Eurasians in Europe begin to make their move against NATO, now including America and Canada once again. May God help our Western friends. With the Indian flank secured, Korea stable, and the front line with China extended to its breaking point from every direction, all at once, the forces of liberty close in on the Maoist scourge. Despite numerous incursions into Manchuria and along the coast, it is our pushes from Indochina and the Gobi that bear fruit. Indian and Japanese forces press across the desert, while Vietnamese forces in coalition with 8 other nations work their magic in the jungles and mountains of Myanmar and Yunnan. Our very own mechanized makes a triumphant return to China via the seizure of Kunming. Soon, this war will end, and increasingly, the naval blockade, aerial bombardment, and internal unrest is too much for the separatists to handle. China sues the PDTO for peace amid cracking internal stability, and in a stark betrayal of our nation, grants us only token concessions along the coast. The ROC embassy in Tokyo demands an explanation, and is simply told funding an occupation of China is too costly to justify. Preposterous! This is a liberation, and peace didn't save China anyway. Look as it fractures right before our eyes. A shameful display! A provisional government sets itself up in Nanjing, and we use our forces to take control of it. Our 700,000-man army is tired. 1 in 20 Taiwanese citizens have served in this army, with a quarter of that taking part in the Home Guard. The fractured state of China is a heart-aching sight. one the aging General Qin Shang cannot bear. He retires, leaving it in the hands of Qin Paoyu, a younger, no less experienced general who was instrumental in setting up the dictatorship in 2024. Though he was set to retire in 2022, obviously the state of the nation requires his continued experience. He led forces valiantly in the push into Yunnan, and now he is in command of the entire nation alongside acting President Han Kuo-yu. President Han returns to more active executive duties, beginning the integration of the mainland territories and opening the military to mainland volunteers, where a surprising number of pro-democracy Chinese citizens offer their aid. Members of the left Kuomintang, now broken, retreat to us to both aid and be protected by us. We could lock them up, but instead, we welcome their help in integrating the mainland. Qin Paoyu begins a military campaign to consolidate South China. Various army groups in the East Sea Fleet are still operating behind the lines in our territory. First, we must take out the East Sea Fleet and the army group before moving on to take Guangxi, on to Yunnan, and the Yangtze River Coalition, all before we can move to secure the final prize. The remnants of the CCP holding on to Beijing with a lion's share of the former army. With the PDTO now split into two spheres, many states leaving, and ourselves left to stabilize China alone, we will never allow another century of humiliation to befall our homeland. The Kuomintang, left and right, will save this nation. The CCP, or lately, as our government has taken to calling them, the Zhili clique, is the hardest enemy we will fight so far. With most of the prior PRC's military remaining in their grasp, the Dongbei forces have largely consolidated back into the fold of Beijing. The Russian mercenaries and the corporate interest groups in Harbin are soon to be crushed. The Chinese hinterlands, the Hui and the Xinjiang lands, are broken and disparate, of no interest to us for now. Breaking the Zhili and acquiring a hold on the Chinese heartland is the most important goal our people have had since 1949, and we will not fail in this endeavor. Yes, it is China, the whole of China, and it is beautiful. The Japanese congratulate us on our victory, having stabilized China and having re-established a true republic under Han Kuo-yu. But we have not forgotten their betrayal. They occupy parts of our mainland. The capital is officially moved to Nanjing, and the Japanese embassy staff are told to pack up and go home. Unless their government will cede the coastal territory back to Chinese home rule, there can be no normalization of relations. They have forgotten the first principle of Sun Yat-sen, nationalism. We have consolidated much. We thank them for their aid and resources and troops, but to take our land, to hold it, and to abandon us in our gravest hour? Intolerable! The Japanese send us a lengthy response, stating they feel they have earned the land after the lengthy and costly war, and would consider returning it after a century. We will not wait a century. China is on fire, no longer physically, but in spirit. The rise of the Kuomintang once again, the white sun banner, has reignited a fervor and a deep love in the Chinese people. An undying will to stand strong as an equal partner in a world where all attempts to combat the West have failed. The Japanese are abandoned by their allies. The ASEAN splits away, reforming their own defensive pact to sit with neutrality between Japan and India. But with the loss of Indochina and others in the South China Sea region, Japan is increasingly isolated. The Korean government offers to form a pact with us against the Japanese. We always knew we could count on Seoul. The Japanese have overstepped their bounds. The UN denounces their occupation, but they hold fast. Asia is at a tipping point again. Despite our ongoing disputes, 2034 is a wonderful year, seeing the restoration of elections and the first election held on the mainland in nearly a century. The nation is in a jubilant attitude. Many left-wing leaning voters hit the polls in support of left candidates. Many reactionaries likewise exist, voting for conservatives. In a time of great national strife and political polarization, the Kuomintang and the Revolutionary Committee of the Chinese Kuomintang have coalesced again into one Kuomintang, bridging the gap between the right and left wings of Sun Yat-sen's old party. As a compromise candidate, famous actor Feng Gong, vice chairman of the left Kuomintang, is placed as the presidential candidate, with the right Kuomintang putting a vice president in place themselves, the mayor of New Taipei, Hou Yu-yi. This ticket draws in left and right-wing voters. The DPP, mainly having relied on its Taiwanese base, fails to accumulate the competitive electoral percentage needed to contest the presidency, and the rise of many new parties from the mainland has caused much division. For now, the two halves of the Kuomintang lead a unity government to rebuild China. With the KMT again elected, Huan Kuo-yu is out of terms, conceding the presidency to Feng Gong with one of the highest approval ratings in years. Han not only guided Taiwan through multiple wars, but reunified China in an exhausting series of events lasting a decade. President Han is happy to return to his home as a party elder, settling in Taiwan, the only home he has ever known. The new president, Feng Gong, is a descendant of former president of the early Republic of China, Feng Guozhang, and was also founder of the Zhili clique. Besides being an award-winning actor and a well-known face for 30 years in China, he is also from an old political dynasty, as are most in the former CCP's Kuomintang. The administration is one that ran on a promise of restoring China's honor, with anti-Japanese rhetoric, but also a comprehensive, rural-focused rebuilding plan to rebuild the nation, focusing on healing the scars left in the land by years of war on Chinese soil, while also funding new traditions, bringing the old and melding it with the new. For the first time in nearly a century, Christians, Buddhists, and others breathe easier that night. House churches become established religious organizations, Buddhists see a revival of their traditions, and Muslims are able to practice freely in Xinjiang. Ultimately, Feng Gong is an actor, well educated in the arts, in history, and in administration. Combined with the expertise of his fellow politicians, he creates a China which preserves the spirit of China. He integrates Taiwanese business regulations, liberalizes some state-owned enterprises, and strengthens labor unions. But he cannot forget that one last promise as a true follower of Sun Yat-sen: nationalism, democracy, and welfare. The three promises of the followers of Tridemism. Our shame has not yet been undone. Nearly 3 years into the Feng Gong presidency, the Japanese still hold various Chinese ports. The South Koreans and Mongolians have joined a mutual defense treaty with the new China, the aptly named Northeast Asian Defense Coalition, and together with the Mongols, we moved into the Russian warlords, seizing the outer Dong Bay and granting the former federal republics of Tuva and Buryatia to our Mongolian friends, while also bringing stability to much of Siberia through the friendly Siberian Republic. China is nearly redeemed, but ultimately, the continued presence of Japan in Tianjin is a sore spot. NATO is facing internal divisions as the vanquishing of their mutual enemy and the end of the PRC mean that figures like Marine Le Pen and Nigel Farage are quickly becoming skeptics of the continued need for a NATO alliance. This division leaves Japan hopelessly isolated, but comprising still a major naval force. The Republic of China is in for a costly struggle, no matter what. Seizing the concessions will be simple enough, but maintaining our economy is another story. In order to make the war as costly as possible for as little cost as possible, submarines and bomb drones have been mass-produced. A fleet of 165 subs and over 4,000 heavy suicide drones are prepared. We have enough ordnance to give the Japanese and Australian combined forces a run for their money. As ROC forces move into the Tianjin concession, televisions globally showcase firefights between the former allies. Within the first month, the Tianjin concession is secure, but careful street-by-street fighting continues in Hong Kong and Macau for well over a month. Simultaneously, our bomb drones descend on urban centers across Japan. 2 weeks in, thousands of drones impact mainland Japan, our fighter planes escorting them in. The island from bottom to top is lit on fire. Tokyo, Osaka, gaze upon the fury of a people scorned. Okay. Oh, fuck. Oh my god! Oh, did you see that?
Yeah.
How many?
Our economy's gone.
Oh, where did it go? 21 cents. The Japanese blame their LDP rulers for the war, seeing no reason to maintain a war over foreign territories which they have now lost. Widespread bombings, industrial collapse, and the loss of tens of thousands of soldiers. The war has to end. The Treaty of Honolulu is signed in late 2037, mediated by the United States. Japan will return all mainland possessions to our control. Finally, the liberation of China is complete. Feng Gong is re-elected in January of 2038 for a second term. Around him is forming the social wing of the Kuomintang. As the two wings become more intertwined and exchange ideas, the future of the Kuomintang as a unified organization seems bright. Feng's popularity is electric. Internationally, domestically, he is a people's president and has a winning smile. As China enters 2040, Feng is an old man. A new political generation will soon enter Chinese politics, and with it, a fresh new landscape of liberals, social democrats, conservatives, and environmental activists. Sun Yat-sen's dream is achieved. It took far longer than he would have hoped. Blood was spilled beyond his worst nightmares, but in the end, China is the ruler of its own destiny. Working with its regional partner India, the claim on Tibet is dropped. The two spheres work towards economic cooperation and rebuilding, eventually including the revived ASEAN in their plans. By the end of Feng's presidency, Asia has cooled. Japan's LDP political monopoly is shattered, and reformists begin to open a dialogue with China. The world is healing. With China in its center, finally, the mandate is ours again.
Hello everybody, happy November, and I hope you had a happy Halloween. Finally got the video out, the Kuomintang video. Next week's gonna be a different country that you won't expect. But, yeah, let's hop right into the patrons. Thanks for watching. If you've watched this far, let's get right into the patrons. Gangsta Plays, Panchak, The Irishman, Samay Cash App, Null Scorpion, Dedrin, Steve Hayes, L. Walter Doro, Protector of the Faith, General Secretary of the National Salvation Council, Luther Manhole, Santiago Soto, Gotts Hubner, Boosgumps, Cyclonus 777, you know I can't say that, and Legrand Pooba. And for my scone and taxpayer, thank you all for being supporters of the channel, and if you would like to receive your unique roles, please join the Discord server and ping me or go into my DMs to get my attention. Thank you all.